Hey, folks, welcome back to the Contrarians. This is another regular episode of our regular Contrarians edition where one of us picks a dark horse album from a band and champions that album as that band's best album, while the other person tries to give them all the sober choices and debates their point with what is general consensus the best album from a particular band. Remember to join us on Patreon. We have lots of exclusive content there, so check us out there. You can also donate at Ko-Fi. We have one of those if you don't want to subscribe for a monthly fee. Anyway, so today, as you can tell, our episode is on the band Whitesnake, which has a very storied history. They put out their first record, Trouble, in '78. David Coverdale was coming from the Deep Purple albums that he did. Come Taste the Band, I think, was the last one he did with Deep Purple. So, and he also had a solo project on the side of that as well. There was Trouble, there was Love Hunter, very more kind of like bluesy-ish type rock. Then they started picking things up with Ready and Willing, which was a great record. Then things kind of start to fall apart a little bit for the next couple of records. You had some guys leaving with Saint and Sinners, and Slide It In was the last album for a couple of regular musicians in the band before that. Like Cozy Powell played on Slide It In. John Lord was gone, I think, after Slide It In. Ian Pace, I think, Saint and Sinners. I might be mixing that up a little bit. But so you had a couple of guys coming and going. I think that's when you really start to see David Coverdale really taking the reins of Whitesnake. Then obviously they had their, massive album, 8 times platinum, Whitesnake, self-titled, 1987, had massive hits on that one. Here I Go Again and Is This Love was #1 hit and a #2 hit. Slip of the Tongue, things kind of started to wane a little bit. Then they had a few records in the 2000s. 2015 was the Purple record, but then they pick it back up in 2019 with actually a pretty favorable reviewed record, Flesh and Blood. So that kind of gives us a loose history from the beginning to the end. And lots of guys are coming and going in this band, but I'm sure if there's anything I missed, Martin can kind of fill that in.
Yeah, that was a good rundown. Just to fill in a few blanks there. So yeah, David Coverdale's coming from Deep Purple. He was kind of an unknown even going into Deep Purple. And then once the whole thing implodes after Come Taste the Band, he does have a couple of solo albums. And then there's sort of this messy history into like in Canada. Well, there was an EP, and then in Canada, it was stretched to an LP. So you've got this Snakebite Trouble live album period, kind of messy. With Ready and Willin' as well. For a long time, I considered Ready and Willin' my favorite Whitesnake album, just from a certain sort of regal and creative point of view, where there was still a really big sort of connection back to the bluesy, funky roots kind of thing. But Come and Get It, Saints and Sinners. So this is when the band, as Marco, you correctly pointed out, they're falling apart. They're having money problems. They don't feel their deal with John Coletta was very good with management. They're kind of grousing. Mickey's grousing, like, we've got all these silver and gold albums in Britain. We're a pretty big band. Where's all the money kind of thing? And then there's the big switch over to the Geffen deal. Slide It In, as you mentioned, the Whitesnake album, which is called 1987 over in the UK. Very, very complicated history of that album and Slide It In. Different members, different versions, different mixes. The last one is Slip of the Tongue with Steve Vai, and it just feels like not a cohesive band situation, really. It was a pretty big drop off down to platinum for that one. Slide It In went double platinum. And then the long hiatus, and then, as you mentioned, they came back and had some other albums. Purple album is a cover album of Purple songs, right? But the other albums sound very much like Whitesnake albums. It's that big, heavy sound. In fact, they sound a lot like they're trying to reproduce the big album, which kind of makes sense, right? The Whitesnake album. So yeah, so my choice for favorite Whitesnake album, as Marco explained on the Contrarians here, it's we only do these when we have a Contrarian choice for a favorite album. And the funny thing with Whitesnake is, as I went through this and looked at all the records, there are a good 1, 2, 3 choices that probably could come even above this choice. And like I say, one of those is Ready and Will. And I know a lot of people who are really old school and like that one a lot. And I like that one a lot as well. But You will find probably, well, I'll leave that for Marco. Marco will tell me the sober choices. I'll tell you what my choice is at this point. Saints and Sinners. I really like Saints and Sinners. This album has really grown in my estimation over the years. The one thing that annoys me about it is it was Ready and A-N apostrophe willing. It was Come and Get It, A-N apostrophe get it. Saints and Sinners has an ampersand in it. It should have been A-N apostrophe, right? But right from the album cover, you sort of notice the trouble here. It's just got this stupid looking, badly photographed figurine on the cover, and the ampersand, as I mentioned. It looks like a rushed cover. The back is kind of rushed. And around this point, you do have this falling out. Mickey Moody had already left the band, but then he's asked to come back, so he comes back. Everybody's kind of tired. They're despondent how the money isn't coming in. Bernie and David, they work together. Bernie Marsden and Mickey, like these guys are kind of the core writing team of the music of the band. So Bernie says, as I kind of went through my book again, I did this Whitesnake book. Unfortunately, it's out of print at this point. This came out through a really good UK publisher. But I was checking some of the quotes again, and Bernie says there weren't really any problems with the band until after they were done. And they kind of, there's this one memorable spot where he looks at Dave and said, do you think we should just knock this on its head? And so there was this thing in the back of David's mind of none of this is really working. The band kind of breaks up. Ian Pace is gone pretty much immediately. So we're in a big period of flux at this point. The deal with Liberty United Artists was never that good. And John Coletta, they were never happy. They figured John Coletta kind of was taking a lot of their money that they should have had and all this kind of thing. So there was a whole rethink. It was almost like, if I'm going to continue this thing, it's got to happen in a whole new way. And that's when they move on to Geffen and John Kalodner, and things do really well and they get great fame. But this record, what I like about this record, and I went back and this actually reinforced my thoughts on this record. I find that when I went through Slide It In again right after, I was kind of shocked at how many kind of pre-hair metal tropes there are across that record and how it's a little stiff because of Cozy, I think. And then the previous record, Come and Get It, is kind of stiff because it's got a really sort of disciplined lockdown production value. On this one, they were kind of all over the place. They recorded at Britannia Row eventually, but they were working at Clearwell Castle with a remote. And it's kind of a semi self-produced album with Guy Bidmead, and Martin Birch does come in at the end and kind of fixes up the backing vocals and things like that. But it doesn't sound like a Martin Birch production, and it doesn't really sound like a self-production. I think it sounds great. I think they're really loose and rocking on this album. Where that's not the case on the album before, and it's not the case on the album after. I think they still have that great sort of anchor in the bluesy hard rock, but it's a pretty heavy bluesy hard rock. Now, just to go through some of the songs on here, actually before that, the other thing that was sort of interesting is that everybody was down on each other and their performances and their songwriting. And even when it came out, they were kind of slagging the album a little bit. And even David at one point said, Ian wasn't really trying hard enough. This is not a great Ian Pace performance. I think Ian sounds great on it. He's not super busy on it, but he's groovy and he does a lot of those great snare fills and stuff. But to go through the songs and why I like this album so much. So Young Blood, first off, the first song on the album and the second to last song in the album, well, I'll go in order, actually. Youngblood is one of my favorite Whitesnake songs of all time. It's super heavy, really groovy, just really powerful, a great opener. Rough and Ready is one of those rollicking, bluesy, knees up, as David would say, sort of blues rock ones. Bloody Luxury is like a driving kind of fast-paced boogie, barroom boogie with piano, like really energetic. Like I say, I mean, this actually probably is their most like 2 or 3 pints in sort of album. It's really super energetic and just kind of going for it. Victim of Love is a good heavy one. Crying in the Rain. Now, this is the interesting part. Here's where we get the original Crying in the Rain and the original Here I Go Again. Now, what happened was John Kalodner, he said, I'll work this band, I'll A&R this band, and we'll sign them to Geffen and David Geffen and the whole bit, and we're going to make you stars and come to California, blah, blah, blah. But my stipulation is we got to redo Crying in the Rain and Here I Go Again. So that's how strong these songs are and how strong John Kolodner thought they were. And they are strong. Crying in the Rain is just this big, kind of heavy, bluesy juggernaut of a song. But here it's not overladen with 80s tropes. It just sounds really powerful and vibrant. Here I Go Again is a really uplifting ballad with that big chorus, right? I mean, it's the super famous song that made them all that money, right? And here we are getting it in a less adorned version, but it's still that song, right? Love and Affection is another kind of swinging, doomy, shuffle beat sort of bluesy hard rock song. But see, the bluesy hard rock here is not the same fusiony, funky, bluesy hard rock that you got on the David Coverdale solo albums, and you got on Love Hunter and Trouble and other fusion stuff from other offshoot Purple members at the time. When they're doing it on this album, it's like rock and barroom, like Let's Give Her sort of thing. John Lord solo there. Rock and Roll Angels is a really Stonesy, kind of charming sort of song from them. Just again, another barroom boogie kind of thing. And then Dancing Girls, like that title is hiding the fact that this is one of their heaviest songs. This is a really awesome heavy metal rocker from these guys with a really cool counterpoint rhythm thing going on. And then Saints and Sinners, is heavy, but it's got a little Southern fried bluesiness to it. It's a little complicated. So start to finish, just loving this album. I mean, there are a lot of songs on the other albums that Marco's going to talk about that are pretty, that are the albums that are picked possibly as the sober choices, where I'm feeling like I'm not loving all the songs. Here, everything fits together. You get the perfect anchor of the not the old and the new. You get the perfect anchor of the old and the middle. You actually don't even really get on this album the same complexion of the band once they move over to Geffen. This is almost like just the perfect version of the traditional original band. And it's the last one. And for all the slagging they do of it, like I say, I mean, I was a little hesitant because I've gone other ways on some of these, but I actually did a very quick, when you play an album, a nice thing to do, a smart thing to do is if you're really going to compare it with another album, play that other album right away and really fast go through the songs. And you really start to see the contrast. And I remember when we did the Cheap Trick episode, it was interesting playing Doctor really fast right after Busted and going, wow, this is really kind of wild, right? But yeah, so it underscored my appreciation for this album. I think it's just the perfect Whitesnake album at the perfect time, even though there was a lot of grousing going on, and essentially it busted up the band at this point. It was all over. So there you go. Saints and Sinners. Marco, tell me why I'm wrong.
So I actually kind of agree quite a bit on a few of your points. I do like Saints and Sinners quite a bit. I prefer Slide It In, and I thought your comment about Slide It In being kind of a proto hair metal tropes on Slide It In. I like hair metal, so maybe that's why I like Slide It In a little bit more, but I do like Saints and Sinners. I think where you're contrarian, and what I would agree with the general consensus is, first of all, general consensus in a lot of ways is Whitesnake, self-titled, 1987, the 87 record. That's number one always on all the lists that I look at, usually number one. I've seen one or two lists where it was something else, but for the most part it was number one.
How much did Slide It In come up?
Slide It In was usually in the top three. It's interesting because a lot of the Whitesnake records in the rankings list that I saw, some of them kind of jump all over the place, right? So like Slide It In was number 2 on one list, but then like number 5 on another list. And that's kind of where Saints and Sinners, where I would agree with the ranking lists. So Saints and Sinners kind of floats around the middle ground with the records. Not middle ground. I would say maybe low top portion of the records. Where I saw Saints and Sinners, coming in on the rankings lists was usually like number 3, like number 4. Best ever albums, it was, which is the one that's very subjective, it was number 7. But I think that also takes into consideration album sales and all kinds of stuff like this, right? Where on that one, I think even Slip of the Tongue was rated higher than Saints and Sinners. And I might be a little contrarian because I actually kind of really like Slip of the Tongue, maybe even a little bit more than Saints and Sinners. In my ranking list, I would probably agree and put Saints and Sinners right at like number 4. And I would probably put Slide It In, Slip of the Tongue, and 87 above it. And then Ready and Willing, I would kind of maybe switch around with Saints and Sinners at like 4 or 5, or maybe even number 3. I might switch those 3 around in that. So like where I agree with you is the production. Like, for example, a track like Bloody Luxury, and I'm a Kiss fan. So like I notice things like when the song Bloody Luxury starts, it reminds me of something off of Dress to Kill. But then it just explodes into this, you know, production kicks in and just blows away the production of anything from Dress to Kill, right? But it kind of has that cool kind of rocking, riffy kind of stuff going on that I like from Kiss, but then it just blows it up with the production. So like I agree with, you know, Victim of Love was another good one that I liked. And songs like Love and Affection, I would say that otherwise being a generic kind of rocky, slightly honky tonk type song is saved by Coverdale's vocals. I actually kind of dig the song, and if it wasn't for if almost anybody else sang it, I would probably just think of it as a generic song that could just be a throwaway. But I think it's saved by Coverdale's vocals. Rock and Roll Angels is kind of whatever, I can take it or leave it. Dancing Girls, I agree. It really, it rocks really hard up until the chorus. The chorus kind of loses me a bit. Right. But what I like about Saints and Sinners that I would probably have an issue with the 87 record, which I'm not going to deny, I would pick that as my top one as well.
Okay.
With production stuff like the keyboards. So for example, I like the keyboards on Saints and Sinners. And it sounds, I like the keyboard style production of keyboards and rock songs from the 70s more than I like the 80s production style from something like Whitesnake 87. If you look at a song like Straight for the Heart from 87, that's where I look at it and say, I like the production of the keys on Saints and Sinners way better because it sounds more timeless.
Yeah.
And on 87, it sounds more dated.
Yeah.
But I will say that I like the production overall better on 87.
Yeah.
For example, Coverdale's vocals. So you did kind of a comparison. Like you mentioned how Crying in the Rain and Here I Go Again is on Saints and Sinners and also on Whitesnake 87. I could probably take Crying in the Rain on either one. Like I could nitpick things like on Saints and Sinners, the guitar is a little bit twangy on that one, but I kind of like that. Kind of reminds me of Road Rash for Sega Genesis, if anybody knows what I'm talking about there. But the soundtrack from Road Rash. But you know, on the 87 one, it is a little heavier, but I like both of them. It'd be nitpicking. Crying in the Rain, although on the Saints and Sinners, the beginning part always reminds me of Catch the Rainbow from Rainbow whenever I hear that first little guitar part or whatever that is. But I would say that one's kind of a tie for me, really. Here I Go Again, I think I prefer on 87. And I would point to the production of the vocals. So for example, and this is nitpicking because I like both records. Yeah. On Saints and Sinners, if you listen to Here I Go Again, I find that Coverdale's vocals, specifically at the part right in the middle of the song, you know, where Coverdale goes really high with the Here I Go, and he goes really high with it. I feel like that lands really flat on Saints and Sinners, where I feel like the production of his vocals are handled better, especially on that version of the 87 one. I feel like the songs on on 87 in general are just more powerful and more heavy. And I think
that's true. Yeah, definitely. I mean, the production is massive. It's molten on that. It's almost too extreme for an album, you know, that's purported to be a hair metal album with guys that look like this. Although this is the later lineup, right? But and Still of the Night is an amazing song. But when I went back and looked at 1987, I realized there's no way this is going to be my number one. And I'm surprised it's always the number one, because I thought Slide It In would be higher. And when I look at Slide It In, the one thing going for it is the songs that you really love off of this, like Slide It In, Slow and Easy, Love Ain't No Stranger, Standing in the Shadow, are on par with the best stuff from Saints and Sinners, but I think the rest of it falls down a little bit compared to Saints and Sinners. And you're right. I mean, the hair metal tropes. I mean, some of them are good and some of them aren't good to have. But I love your point about the keyboards because yeah, I like the timelessness of that. A little bit of that boogie woogie piano, given the link to his old past, and then there's also just some good Hammond organ, and even some clavinet sort of sounds on Saints and Sinners. So yeah, I just feel it's that perfect pocket. I feel almost overwhelmed by the hair metalness and the corporateness once you get to even 1987 and Slip of the Tongue. It's there, it's right in your face. But I love your point about possibly Here I Go Again is just it needs that extra oomph that you get on 1987. But Crying in the Rain, it's almost like it was powerful enough, and now it's just over the top on 1987, right? Or Whitesnake, whatever you want to call it, right? It's almost like too laden with molten layers of guitars. And it almost feels like you want it just dialed back a tiny bit, and that's why I like it on that one. So yeah, interesting. So yeah, and like I say, I mean, at one point for me, it was Ready and Willin', and maybe old school people go back to that. And I know a lot of people like Come and Get It as well. I was actually, here's something really interesting. I was shocked to hear the other day. I was listening to one of the Sea of Tranquility episodes with Pete. Pete says Whitesnake is his third favorite band of all time. I couldn't believe that. Yeah, it's like Deep Purple, Black Sabbath, and Whitesnake. I mean, and he says they even move around a little bit in there. I mean, Whitesnake wouldn't have come to mind for me for quite a while in my favorite list, I don't think. But yeah, I get a lot out of all these records. So there you go. I mean, let us know what you think. I guess we could wrap it up. Let us know what you think.
No. I sorry. No? You got something I have more notes. I have more notes, but there's definitely one thing I want to bring up.
Okay.
So I could go into a bunch of different things. But okay. I do want to say you're contrarian, not only with general consensus, but you're contrarian with your younger self. Yes. I don't get to do this very often. So I'm going to do it now. I'm going to take this chance now. So you might remember putting this book out, which is your heavy metal guide of the 80s.
Yeah.
In here, and this is your younger self. I know opinions change and stuff like this. And we're kind of doing this a little bit more in fun. But you actually, in your reviews, rated this a 7 out of 10. You gave 87 an 8 out of 10, Slide It In an 8 out of 10, and Ready and Willing a 9 out of 10. So in the book, you gave 3 of the Whitesnake records a higher rating than you did Saints and Sinners. So you're contrarian on yourself. One of the things that you had said in your review at the time was, David, and I know you hate hearing your old writings, so it's just a sentence. So 2 sentences. David posing as a character of himself, his juvenile songs undermined by low-cal playing and production. Still, there's nothing wrong with a little meaningless fun, and Whitesnake delivers. So you criticized some of it, but you also said something good about it. With 87, you said Still of the Night was one of the grand opus of the Whitesnake catalog. Metal Tour de Force. You also rated Bad Boys highly, and basically said, and you also criticized that a little bit too, because you said it's 1/2 Profoundly on Fire and 1/2 Sellout, which I would kind of agree with. But I think that with stuff like Is This Love, just because I know that's a point of contention too, I appreciate stuff like Is This Love for the sense that for a band that I like, I'm glad they had a hit record and they made a lot of money off of it, right? Because otherwise, with some of the older records, they didn't do as well. So it's nice that a band like even Kiss with Beth, it's nice that bands I like had a hit and made a lot of money.
So but I hate that song. I can't stand that song. Yeah. I mean, I like Here I Go Again. I mean, Here I Go Again is almost a good way to do a power ballad, and Is This Love is a lousy way to do it. It's interesting, those marks, because I'm consistent, almost like 75% in there, and in saying I used to like Ready and Willing more. I gave it a 9. I don't think I would give it a 9 now, because I did go through it again and realize there's a few that are really kind of oldie moldy on there, right? That go back to those early days. And at that time, I mean, I am always very appreciative of at how heavy they made 1987. I mean, that's a really heavy album to go 8 times platinum, right? And they were quite extreme with the production on it, right? And I will say, and I've said this many times, I think Still of the Night is one of those songs that when I think of the 4 or 5 songs like this, that I think is the greatest riff of all time ever written. I mean, I compare it with Metal Church sometimes, and Overdrive Dream Away, which is a little obscure, but that's one of these Swedish things from 1985. Check it out, Overdrive Dream Away, that riff. But still, it's incredible, right?
It's hard to deny the impact that 87 had on the planet. I mean, even if you look at YouTube comments, a lot of the comments are like, I was 15 when this came out and it blew me away. I was 20 when this came out and it kicked my ass. Like that album impacted the planet in a profound way. So in that sense, it was mega. But we'll agree to disagree. I agree. I'll take Hammond organ any day over 80s synth keyboards. We'll agree to disagree. I like the album that you picked. I don't think it's the best. I think it's fairly rated. You like it a lot. Other than that, unless you have any final points.
One more thing to say. Yes, I have one more thing to say. On production, this is the funny thing about production. So when I was writing that, and along the years, you play things on different stereos, you play them on vinyl, you play them on CD. When I was going through all of this to prepare for this episode, I am using, believe it or not, the best stereo I have is my $99 2 tweeters pointed right at my head on my desk and a subwoofer. It was $99. It's hooked up to my stereo. And I'm playing all of this and comparing it all on Spotify, right? And as I'm playing all these things on Spotify with perfect sound, like I can't see, I don't want more treble, I don't want more bass, everything is perfect, right? So when I'm comparing all of these right now, today in 2021 on Spotify, I am hearing probably better production than I heard on this album when I was playing the vinyl. And to let you in on one other little secret, I think when I was putting down the production on that, I think my version of that album might have been the picture disc version. I might have literally owned for the longest time the picture disc, because Saints and Sinners came out as a picture disc and it came out as black vinyl, right? And production tastes change over time as well, and you've got that thing. This bad pressing for Canada, which is maybe a picture disc or a black vinyl, but it's coming from Liberty United Artists or whatever. And then you get this pristine Whitesnake vinyl, that was made properly and all that. The vinyl probably sounded better, or comparatively better on 1987 than the old one as well. So it's funny. Production over time, when you start making opinions about production, you're not realizing that there's a lot of garbage in, garbage out, right? It's like, what are you playing it on? What's the stereo? What's the medium? What are you comparing here, kind of thing. So, but I guess the valid way really in going forward is Spotify is really the way a lot of people are going to consume these records, and Saints and Sinners sounds really nice on a computer. I don't care if it's MP3 or MP4, whatever level it is. I think it sounds better than it's going to sound on most vinyl situations. So there you go. That's an obscure thing, but so let's wrap it up. Time to wrap it up, or what do you think?
It's a great record. Okay. I don't hate your choice. I don't think it's the best. I agree with general consensus, and I think probably at the end of the day, we're both fans of Whitesnake, and we're both fans of Whitesnake, and we like both albums, and we like a lot of Whitesnake albums. So absolutely. Thanks a lot, everybody, for stopping by. Remember to check us out on Patreon. We have a bunch of exclusive content there, and I guess we'll see you again next time.
Absolutely.
Did you want to say any books that you have coming up, or?
Well, let's see what is happening these days. So, the Sweet book is still selling pretty well. Angel, I've got the Angel book, the Sweet book. The big one right now is the Flaming Telepaths, Imaginos, Expanded and Specified. Long story. Check it out at my, I think I describe it pretty well at the site, so you'll understand what that is at martinpopoff.com. And in a couple weeks, well, I guess it doesn't matter about time, but the last one of the Rush trilogy, Driven, is coming out shortly. So that'll be a crazy time. So there you go, martinpopoff.com.
Very cool.
All right. We'll see you again next time.
That's it, dude.